Hi, this is Todd Crawford.
This is Eric Zavinski.
You're watching Too Cool for the Comic Shop. Well, actually, you're listening to it. You're not watching it.
Really good start. I'm not letting you redo that one
Yeah.
either.
I wouldn't want to. I intentionally thought about saying watched, and I was like, why would I do that? Why would I say that? And then for some reason, I'm blaming it on my OCD.
I think I was saying watched earlier too because fun little story about Todd and I. Back in 2016, you were on my third episode, I believe, of my podcast, Eric's Talk, when I was a dweeb college student just doing videos about anything and everything. And now here we are 4 years later. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. And what's pathetic is we're still talking about Sonic.
Yes, so if you guys have seen the title, we are talking about the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. We have both seen it in theaters. I actually took my boyfriend out to see it on Valentine's Day because I'm a good, solid partner.
It's so funny for me. I want to go. It came out Valentine's Day. My birthday was 2 days later, and I didn't end up going that day. And I really didn't think I could go, but I wanted to make sure it happened. I went home with family the next week, and I basically had to like drag my little sister, who's 12, to go see it with me. She was like my excuse to not look like a creep at the Sonic movie.
Okay, so here's the real test. Did your 12-year-old sister like the Sonic the Hedgehog film?
Yeah, she did, and I wasn't sure she was being polite. When I saw it with her, like I asked her, I was like, "How do you like that movie?" She's like, "That was good." And then the next morning, I heard her getting ready for school, and she told me, she's like, "Baby Sonic was so cute, and this and that, and blah blah." So she seemed to actually like it.
Well, honestly, that'd be a good place to start because I think maybe we should just talk chronologically through the movie because you and I are pretty big Sonic fans. I've been a Sonic fan since I was like 8 years old. I've played almost every mainline Sonic game to completion, and I'm obsessed with the old Sonic X anime when I was a kid, and I read the new IDW comics now, so I'm really deep into the Sonic fandom. So how deep are you, Todd?
I don't even want to admit how deep. It's
Yeah,
I'm way past deep. So I haven't played all the
there are many
mainline
fans who are deep.
games. After Adventure 2 is when I really cut off, and part of it was just age. I think it's around 13 when Shadow the Hedgehog came out. And I played Heroes, and I liked it when I was a kid, but I just didn't own it.
Shit. So
And the Shadow thing with him getting guns just really put me off. I don't know. Something just felt wrong. And I played some games since then. I've liked some of the games since then. I have the most recent one, Forces, and it's weird because I used to play that. I got it as a present, a birthday present. I really value that kind of stuff. So like I played. I knew it wasn't the best, but I still have fun with it. And just a few months ago, my PlayStation 4 broke, and I got another one around December. I thought I'm going to replay Sonic Forces because I remember that being kind of fun. And I remember like getting halfway through, and I thought I would rather have more fun doing nothing. and I hate
let's
saying
just
that. It hurts to say that.
it's a mediocre Sonic game, but the best part about it is the soundtrack, which is honestly what I end up saying for probably 2/3 of the Sonic games out there. But
I agree. And my thing with that game is like the levels are just so short. Like it feels like every time it's like you're listening to a pop song, and then right when the chorus is about to begin, it just ends.
yeah, some of the best songs will actually not be even played in full because the levels are so short. It actually hurts me a little bit. But I think music is a good jumping off point to talk about the movie because basically the first thing that happened after the whole Sega logo, which I thought was really cool, just to see actual Sonic gameplay on a movie screen, which is uncanny and weird, but in a good way. They opened the Sonic movie with the Hyper Potions main theme of Sonic Mania, which kind of blew my mind.
That shocked me too, and that really was a pleasant surprise because I honestly think that is one of the catchiest songs in the whole Sonic canon.
It's really good. It really marketed Sonic Mania super well in 2017, and yeah, like those guys are like indie music producers. Like their glow up story is pretty amazing. So I was just happy for them that their music was used as they like panned through Green Hill Zone, which by the way looks awesome in movie form, and I hope in the inevitable sequel we get a lot more stuff like that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna get into more because this movie is fascinating, and I don't want to get into too much right off the bat, but this movie was everything I did not want in a Sonic movie, and I still had a really good time watching it. So that's a pure compliment. Like they
Like, what you
literally,
mean? Because like the movie was largely focused on human characters other than Sonic, but Sonic was like still in the movie a lot. It wasn't like some of these other live action hybrid movies where like the Transformers is a good example where like, oh my god, Sam Witwicky is like in 90% of the movie, but Optimus Prime is in 10% of the movie, right? Now obviously that's a Michael Bay movie and has 10 billion other problems for it to be good that need to be fixed. But the Sonic movie did not have that problem. Like Sonic was in it a lot.
yeah, and especially the beginning, which I thought was probably the strongest part of the movie for me. So the movie begins, and I don't love the baby Sonic thing. I don't think he needed to be a baby at the beginning. I think it would have worked better if he was sent to the human world and he was there for maybe a month or two rather than 15 years or whatever. He's 15 years old in the movie. I'm assuming like 13 years, we'll say. But whatever, it's harmless. It's a kid's movie. I get it.
Well, then making everything a baby version is super in these days anyway.
It's true, and like it's cute. I get it. Whatever. It made my sister happy. I understand I'm not the target audience. But it begins with him. He's being chased by echidnas, which was really exciting to see on the screen. And their designs were awesome, I thought.
Yeah, them showing up really gave me Sonic Adventure vibes, and I was like, that was more lore than I expected right off the bat. Like just the fact that that whole species is being acknowledged to exist. You know, you don't even get that much lore in the Genesis games, to be honest. So the fact that they went that far right off the bat, and then on top of that, made an original character named Longclaw that was Sonic's owl mommy. Cool. I like her design, and the fact that this movie, the guts to make an OC, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm kind of sold. They actually took some, you know, creative liberties here.
Yeah, and one thing I liked about that, and you know, I will say, the movie moves too fast in some places.
But you gotta go fast, Todd.
That's what I was leading up to that. And with that part of the movie, with Sonic being introduced when he's on the island, and then his mom character getting potentially fatally injured, we don't really know as an audience. I feel like it happened
there's a
so
movie rule.
soon.
If you don't see them die, they're coming back in the sequel.
And I hope she does. I'd like to see more of this character, more of that world. To me, that was the most exciting part of the movie, was just seeing that stuff with Sonic and whatever you want to call it. It's not Green Hill Zone, I guess, probably.
By the Archie Comics route, we could just call it Mobius and call it a day.
Yeah, and I did want to add, I talked about the games. I did read the Archie comics pretty faithfully for a large number of years. And I've seen Adventures of Sonic, Sonic Sat AM, and Sonic X. And that'll kind of later on, maybe at the overview, I'll talk more about what I wanted for the movie. But I don't know what they're going for with this in terms of canonical mythology of the show or the character. But what I liked was that, with you said, with it bring up the OC, it's just kind of doing its own thing entirely. And that owl character at the beginning is a great way of letting fans know, like, you know, with the Echidnas, like, we're going to pay some fan service. We care about you as fans, but we're telling our own story. We're doing our own thing as well. And I appreciated that.
Agree. And it's kind of like, you know, I think that's what people want. You look at all the comic book movies and the MCU especially, and those are just different adaptations and different versions of stories that involve the same characters that you're used to. So I think if they would have straight up retold the story of Sonic 3 and Knuckles or something, like, that can't work. That won't work. They can't do the soap opera complexity of Sonic Adventure 2 in a movie. Like, you just can't do that. So
I would pay to watch them try, though.
Absolutely pay to watch them try. After the Sonic movie got out, quick aside, Colton's a Sonic fan, but he doesn't know a lot of the games like I do, because he just, you know, didn't play them for one reason or another. So I was like trying to explain to him the lore of Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2 and Shadow the Hedgehog and all these games that have wildly complex narratives for some reason. And he was I don't know if he was entertained or just horrified. Probably the latter.
I've had a few of those conversations. I get real deep into Sonic, and I start like raving and frothing them up like Big the Cat or something.
Really deep in Sonic and frothing about Big the Cat in the same like breath, and
Yeah, and it doesn't go over
oh my
well in job
god,
interviews, let me tell you.
that's not the icebreaker that you want.
So after that, I think we get this is what sold me on the movie. When I knew like the beginning, I was like, okay, I kind of like this. I like the animation style they're doing. I like generally where they're going with the plot. It's a little rushed. After then, it shows Sonic. It fast forwards a good decade, we'll say, and he's in the town of Green Hill, and he's just like it's almost like Castaway or something. The way that they have Sonic just totally alone, just watching people, eavesdropping them, interacting with himself in a way that we've never seen Sonic, but it's a totally different take on the character.
One of the things that I felt like was most refreshing about the movie, because like you and I are very familiar with the cocky, arrogant, kind of self-serving but still noble Sonic that's pretty much in all the games and comics. So to see like he's basically a kid in the movie, which I thought was just really refreshing. And it's a different voice actor. Ben Schwartz does an amazing job of capturing that kind of youthful, unending energy that Sonic would have if he was basically a kid with no family. I mean, yeah, he might be, I don't know what age is supposed to be in the movie, like 15, but even so, like he's essentially on a maturity level like 6 years old.
Yeah, and speaking of the casting, I'm glad you brought that up. Ben Schwartz is such a weird choice. I know him from Parks and Rec, which I imagine is what most people know him from. And he plays kind of an irritating character on. And he's supposed to be irritating. It's funny. They play it up. And when I heard the cast, I'm like, that is so weird. I'm kind of into it, but I didn't know what it'd be like. And I thought he did a great job as Sonic. I always think Steve Urkel when I think Sonic voices, but I really liked what he did here with it.
Yeah. My favorite Sonic voice actor is Jason Griffith. He was the voice actor during Sonic X and the 2004 to 2008 games. But his voice really suits the arrogant persona of Sonic, which obviously Sonic hasn't beaten Eggman in his life. Like he hasn't saved anybody's life. Like he has no reason to be arrogant. He's just a wild hedgehog. He's just a wild animal. So a good job in actually giving him a character in this movie.
And one thing they do, they totally renovate the character in that what they do. I can't believe I've never seen this before. And I mean, I've been following songs since I was like probably 3 or 4, like ridiculously my whole life. And they have him interact with himself because he's so fast. You know, see in the trailers, like he plays baseball and he's all the players at the baseball field. And part of it showing he's kind of losing his mind being alone all the time. But to utilize his speed and give it this breath of fresh air, it's like, how did nobody think of this before? This makes so much sense.
This movie had a few sequences where it actually surprised me in their creativity. Like that was one of them. It has some later on in the movie that we'll talk about. But they just really captured his personality. Also, early on in the movie, they play "Don't Stop Me Now" by Queen over him doing stuff. And a really deep, nerdy part of me rejoiced because I don't know if you remember or if you were following it, but when Super Smash Bros. Ultimate was about to come out, they released this trailer of the characters fighting, but it had no music. And then fans started putting music over the Smash trailers. And by far the most popular one was somebody put "Don't Stop Me Now" over the Smash trailer. And it perfectly matched, like the lyrics matched. And so the fact that I feel like the Sonic movie makers had paid attention to something like that and just went all the way and actually put it in the film.
I didn't know about that, but the movie has a lot of that, and we all know about the pre-production, or not the pre-production, the post-production mess. And one thing that's not acknowledged much is that, the first trailer came out, and it was hideous, let's be real. And
yeah,
what the filmmakers did is they took the criticism, and I don't even know if I'd always agree with it. I get, like, Jim Carrey was against the redesign. I get just sticking with your guns, but I really respect them for saying, you know what, people aren't happy with this. We know our audience. And if the fans aren't happy, that's who we want to make happy. And they didn't insult fans. They didn't slander anybody or make themselves have to be victims. They said, we have a product and it's not being marketed well. We're early enough that we can fix this. We need to retool it, and it completely worked. And you could tell there's a lot of care put in, even though it is first and foremost a family picture, to make people who just enjoy the series happy.
And I think there's a lot of elements that, like, I don't like the whole blanket statement thing where it's like, oh, now fans can decide what a movie looks like or how it is. And I'm like, not really. I mean, this is a very macro problem that they had. This wasn't just like, oh, we think the script's going to be bad because the jokes in the trailer didn't like those or whatever. Like, this was so objectively like a bad call. I don't even know why anybody would have thought that original design looked good. I really don't understand it. I feel like the artists were forced to make something that a studio executive had been like, that's what Sonic should look like. And it just, my God, like, I think they had to look at the Detective Pikachu movie a year prior too. And like that movie had realistic fur textures and, you know, animations for these characters, but their silhouettes were basically kept the same. Pikachu still, if you like blacked him out, he would still look like Pikachu. And that's what Sonic needed to be. Like, you can update him to look like he could exist in front of you, but the fact that, God, everything about the original design unnerved me to an excessive degree.
It did, and like, I almost feel like it's redundant to even talk about it. I mean, there's almost nothing to say other than like, it's just abysmal.
Oh.
It's just a monstrosity, and like, I really hope that they took like that Sonic out and like behind the shed just shot him, like just put it out of its misery.
I feel like it's also redundant to talk about at this point because it's amazing how big of a comeback this movie had, because people saw that design. Not even the trailer, like just the design, and they were like, people were ready to chalk this up as one of the worst video game movies before it even came out.
Oh, I
and
was.
The fact that they enlisted Tyson Hesse to help with the redesign, and he does amazing Sonic art, and he has for years, including for Sonic Mania, and kind of just put a whole new direction behind the art team and put a lot more money in the movie. Since they did that so expertly, like, you wouldn't even know the design was bad. Like, if my kids in 10, 15 years watch this movie, they will never know the atrocity that we almost got.
Yeah, and I hope they release the original version. I don't think there is an original version of the movie. I don't think that, you know, at first I thought the original design was all a hoax, to be honest. For about a month I thought this, where they released it and then they quote unquote fixed it to make fans happy, but it was pre-planned from the start. And they were always playing like the long game to make people think they got what they wanted, but really we're going to get the same design that we ultimately got. And then I started to see set photos with the original design, and then what really sold me on the fact that this would actually happened real time, it was organic, was hearing it was Paramount. And Paramount very typically does these strange, kind of realistic and, in my opinion, just grody designs for these characters. They did the TMNT movie that Michael Bay produced. They did
they're not very sexy in that. I'm not sure if they did, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I could be wrong on that one, but they usually like those weird stylistic just changes. And then when I heard that, I was like, you know what? Yeah, this is probably real.
Well, and part of me wanted to believe that too, and I feel like a small part of me still does, because it's just so unbelievable that anybody would like that, like you said, grody design. But like, conspiring, it had to be a conspiracy. Like, oh, it's such a perfect marketing scheme. Like, everything that's related to Sonic sucks, so let's make a shitty trailer. People will talk about it more, and then we'll do a heroic redesign. People will talk about it even more. So if you look at it from that sense, it's kind of a genius marketing strategy. But then I have to ask myself, do I really think, you know, the people at Paramount are that genius? And then I, like you, and there's evidence to back up your point, like, I kind of have to say, no, they're not that genius. I think they got really lucky, and then the right talent came in the right places, even if it was late.
Yeah, and I think that's consistently true with Sonic, is that the core creative team, and they're overworked, they're rushed. I know it's a very rushed production on basically all the modern games to just pump out the next Sonic, because they do make money. With that said, they're just not given the time they need to properly develop a fleshed out product. But then you have something like Sonic Mania made by a fan, Christian Whitehead. You have all these fan games and fan art that's amazing. And but the studio itself just doesn't seem to get it. And I think that Sega and Sonic Team, and by extension also now Paramount, are slowly realizing maybe we don't know what's best for this series, but people do know that we can hire.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think that hopefully will be reflected in their games too, because it's been a while since Sonic Forces. So maybe for the 30th anniversary game in 2021, they'll actually knock that one out of the park, and maybe they'll make a Sonic Mania 2. But
yeah, there's nothing I'd like more than a good Sonic game.
So yeah, basically, just kind of recapping the early act of the movie. What do you think about the human characters?
Well, the first character, I think his name's Tom in the movie. Sonic calls him Donut Lord. Is fascinating to me.
We'll call him Donut Lord for the rest of the video.
Yeah, that's all I'll remember him as. I'm actually looking up on IMDb because I gotta get the actor's name right. James Marsden.
James Marsden.
Of course, I like him. I think everybody likes him from other projects. But it's such a weird, different, goofy role for him that you don't see him do. He gets to be charismatic and likable and funny and just outgoing. And I kept thinking the whole movie, this was clearly written to be Chris Pratt.
I can kind of see that. Yeah, definitely not Cyclops. Definitely not the brooding, no unnecessary talking Cyclops.
Yeah, and I saw concept art, and it could have been fake fan art for all I know, with Chris Pratt as the character of the sheriff way before the movie came out or the first trailer came out. So maybe that was just in my mind, but like him dressing the donuts up and like the jokes he was given just all felt very, very, Andy Dwyer to me.
I remember seeing that as well. And I think they did kind of go for that. But yeah, James Marsden, I feel like, pulled it off. I was very charmed by him. And I thought that what really sold it is that he and Sonic developed a pretty good bromance. So
it's true.
It's weird.
Oh, sorry.
I can't believe I'm saying that about a live action character and a CGI character in a movie. I honestly can't believe I'm saying that because I cannot think of another instance where the chemistry was that good between those two types of characters.
No, I can't either. And like, once again, it's the film doing something I would never picture or even want, with like James Marsden's weird, goofy role where he's, once again, the live action buddy to the animated hero, and he's goofy and outgoing, and it really works very well. It's like astonishing.
It really is astonishing. And like he had his own character arc where he had to realize what he wanted. And, the movie is cheesy. It is for kids. And Sonic and Tom both realize through the power of friendship what they really want in life. But like, you know what? I was all for it because the movie committed to it and they actually executed. And I feel like I'm living in a weird parallel dimension right now.
Yeah, like I never thought that like I would watch a movie and be as positive as I am about it, especially the elements that put me off the most from seeing it in the first place.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, I like Detective Pikachu pretty well too, but I think the Sonic movie, now that I've marinated on it for about 2 weeks now, I think the Sonic movie is a bit better, honestly.
I haven't seen Detective Pikachu yet. I just kind of missed that one in theaters. I don't go that often these days. But I heard a lot of people liked it. I wouldn't mind checking it out at some point. But
now it shares a lot of similarities with the Sonic movie. It's really funny, and I made this point coming out of the theater with my boyfriend, and the main human character's name in Detective Pikachu is Tim, and the main character's name in Sonic the Hedgehog is Tom, and I'm just like, weird.
That is funny.
That just kind of opens the door of like, oh yeah, these two movies are very similar. They both have talking CGI video game cartoons with, charming-ish male leads. That's where I feel like Sonic the Hedgehog has the upper hand, is I feel like the human characters were stronger than the human characters in Detective Pikachu.
Yeah, and I mean, we're kind of leaving out the obvious human character.
Actually surprised we've gotten almost 20 minutes in the video without talking about Dr. Eggman.
Once again, they they do this. It's very much like Zack Snyder's Superman. That's like Eggman's arc in this, is that he starts out completely different than you might expect the character to be, and he slowly grows
Yeah.
into the role. And I didn't really want that. Once again, though, like, I liked his look as Eggman in this movie. He's not called Eggman in the movie, I don't think, at all. But his look is
Oh.
Robotnik, like thin, with like these very modern glasses and the haircut. It just works. He's just a good movie villain.
Really works. He has some amazing lines. I think my favorite line is towards the end of the movie where he says, "Confidence, a fool's substitute for intelligence." And I was like, "Whoa, that's actually like well written."
That is, I forgot about that. I like it's a goofier one, but he's talking to the one cop, the useless cop in the office. He says, "We'll take care of it. You just be you, Sliss." And it's such a lame joke, but it just works. He just sells it so well.
If you're gonna make lame jokes, then have them sold by a cartoon character. And Jim Carrey hasn't done stuff like that in a while. But I really felt like his '90s persona that he had for so many films really was. I mean, everybody's saying it. It really was just capitalized on in this movie.
Yeah, and like he has so many good just little jokes, and it's so insanely over the top. Just him at his like pretty much his wildest in some scenes. It's just like I just remember thinking like I can't believe he committed this much to this role.
And just watching some interviews and stuff, it looks like he's pretty enthusiastic about being in the sequel if there ends up being one, which seems likely considering how much money this movie has made.
Yeah, I don't know if you caught this. This might be a bit of a spoiler, but at the end, he starts walking and basically doing the robot. And he didn't do the robot as one typically would. He did it like the robot at the end of Sonic 2.
I know it by the end of the movie in that final scene with him, like I totally started to see him morph into the video game Eggman because the appearance was there. Obviously, if he grew a gut, he would basically fill out the silhouette of Dr. Robotnik proper. But the thing that really sold me was he just started cackling like a crazy man, and I could totally hear Mike Pollock, the voice of Eggman in the games, like lines and the stupid puns that he was making with Dr. Stone was like now actually a real stone. I'm like, I feel like this is what real video game Eggman would start to act like if he had an origin story.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that I mean, let's be real, the movie's incredibly cheesy and corny, but in terms of like a family Sonic movie, why wouldn't it be? Isn't that kind of what we want?
Yeah.
Dr. Eggman being played.
Well, and I
like,
feel if somebody who is into Sonic is into it, whether they know it or not, to some extent, because Sonic is super cheesy. I mean, that's part. I still adore the soap opera stories of the Sonic Adventure games. I enjoy the 20 plus characters and the themes of friendship and freedom and doing your best. I mean, it's like Sonic really reaches out to that pure innocent kid part of you. So I wouldn't want a Sonic movie to be anything else or take itself seriously in any way, really.
exactly, and going back to Adventure especially, I mean, the fan base is very much kind of like anime in a way, where it has these ridiculous tropes, but we just kind of celebrate them. We know it's ridiculous, but we love that.
Exactly, because it's supposed to be fun. I mean, this is based off of a video game too, and if a video game movie is not going to be over the top, then why even bother? It's like I feel like that's some of the '90s video games movies' worst flaws, is that they didn't fully celebrate the franchise they're trying to adapt or replicate. Like you look at movies like Mortal Kombat or Super Mario Brothers, and they don't even feel like the game because they barely put elements from the games in the movie.
I always
And it's like you don't even know what you're watching.
I always feel like with Super Mario Bros. That it was made despite the games, or was like intentionally made to piss people off. Like even with like The I can't even remember the names. It's been that long. The Koopas having the little heads and the big bodies and stuff instead of the big heads
Oh
and little
yeah,
bodies. It's like you did this on purpose. There's no other way to explain this.
exactly. I'm sure the Super Mario Brothers movie could be its own podcast someday, but in order to do that, I would have to rewatch it again. I don't know if I hate myself that much. Um,
It's true. There's
but
so
it's
bad
just
it's good.
yeah,
And
it's
it's just
fascinating.
that.
I feel like we're kind of back in the 90s in a way because this is an example where Sonic actually beat Mario to the punch. And I can't remember in any way in the past decade or two where that's happened. But Sonic had a good movie before Mario returned to the big screen.
Yeah, it's impossible, but it happened. And the whole movie, for me at least as a fan, feels like a new beginning. Where it feels like, and I know this doesn't reflect the games. It doesn't mean the next game's going to be great. It doesn't mean Sonic's going to have a renaissance. But it does feel like video game movies in general, and especially this franchise, it does seem like they're really turning over a new leaf, listening to fans, and just giving a solid product.
No, I can totally feel that, and I think they're wise enough to know that the brand is interconnected. They know the movie is going to garner more fans or reignite some longstanding fans' love for the franchise. And if a movie's success is such a good way to relaunch a brand, like Detective Pikachu was good, it kind of broke the mold in a different way for Pokemon, but Pokemon never stopped being really popular. It's not like Detective Pikachu like helped the Pokemon Sword and Shield games shatter records. Like that would have happened anyway. But for Sonic, where the franchise is a little more maybe not top quality all the time, and the fan base is a little more divided or segmented, I think the Sonic movie is actually kind of a unifying point for the franchise.
And I think it was absolutely needed. And I love the series. I'll probably be following it the rest of my life, whether I like it or not. But when a new game's announced, I don't think like, oh my god, I can't wait. I think like, well, I hope this one's good. We'll see. Maybe I'll get it. You know what I mean? Like, there's no enthusiasm. I feel like we're all exhausted as fans. And how I felt watching this movie was hopeful. Is the best way to describe it.
I mean, made this movie for a reason. I remember the movie first being announced as a project probably years ago or something. And when it was first announced, I couldn't help but think to myself, this is just a sick way to capitalize off of a video game franchise that is struggling a little bit. Because, yeah, 2017 was a good year for Sonic. But before that, we were in the dark days of Sonic Boom and some really awful games. And it just felt like the Sonic franchise had no direction for a while, especially in the 2010s. But now I can't believe to say that I've basically flip-flopped my opinion, and I think the Sonic movie helped and it didn't hurt.
And you are right. I haven't followed the IDW comics. I only followed the Archie. I didn't even follow those the last few years, but it seems like that brought a lot of interest back into the series too. I know a lot of people read those that typically wouldn't follow Sonic.
You're talking about a Sonic Renaissance, and we might actually be in it. Even though Sonic Forces wasn't the best Sonic game, it also wasn't the worst. It wasn't a Sonic Boom, and it wasn't a Sonic '06. So, you have a little bit of a groundwork there. The IDW comics, I've read like 4 volumes of them so far. They actually are canon. Like they take place right after Sonic Forces, and they tell like a really cohesive story with like all 15 of the main Sonic characters, and they all have really good moments. And like for a Sonic nerd like me, it's really, really exciting. It's not convoluted, which I think the Archie comics kind of got many times. It's simple to understand, but of the series because they have like little callbacks to the previous games, so it's like, oh, all of these things do happen to the same characters in the same timeline. So the comics and Mania ignited a love for the franchise too. Now that the movie is a success, hopefully they continue to capitalize on all of it.
Yeah, and I feel like Forces to me, I don't really hold harsh feelings about that one because, like you said, like it's playable. It's not a broken game. I know that's not high praise, but
Yeah.
like I think if it was properly developed, it probably could have been okay. And it was so long ago. It's kind of like that was bringing in the new age of Sonic, but I really feel like that was just a false start, and Sonic Mania was really what kicked it off.
Like they tried to interconnect Sonic Mania and Forces a little bit story wise, a little bit marketing wise. But Sonic Forces still, I feel like, has a couple memorable things to it. Like making an avatar was kind of a big deal. I actually like made an avatar that I felt like would look normal in the Sonic universe. So I made a green furred wolf named Forrest, and I really liked using him because that was kind of fun. That was at least fresh, and I appreciated the Sonic franchise mostly because it takes risks, always pay off. But some of my favorite games are wild. Like I love Sonic Unleashed, the game where you turn into a werehog for 2/3 of the game, and it actually has a pretty good story, all things considered. And the boost formula gameplay really got its start in that game too. So I actually hold Unleashed in really high regard, and some people might hate that game, but
See,
it's refreshing about Sonic.
I need to catch up on that. That's one I've been wanting to get and just like buy a used copy, or maybe just buy on the PlayStation Network sometime when it's on sale. But
Yeah, I actually like the PlayStation 2 Wii version more because it was developed by Dimps, which are the people who created the Sonic Rush games, which were fairly well reviewed 2D Sonic games on the Nintendo DS. So I actually love the Wii version a lot. I actually don't like the PS3 version in terms of the controls. So I give that caveat when I recommend Sonic Unleashed because there's actually two versions of the game.
and that makes sense. That is a common thing I've run into as well. I used to have back in middle school, I had like all three of the main consoles. So like I'd look up which one was supposed to be the best and then get it for that console. And see, my thing with this movie, to get a little bit back more on track, is that so what I wanted in a Sonic movie, I want to be totally 3D CG animated, and I want to be basically very similar to the story of a game, and then also a little bit of the Sonic Sat AM plotline, where you would have Sonic and he's out hanging out in Green Hill, and then a robot approaches him and attacks him, and he spin dashes it, and a little furry critter runs out, and he's going through it, and it's just basically stage by stage like a game where he's in these different environments, and he's fighting Robotnik at various points. It could only really be 2 or 3 stages. You can't do the whole thing, but maybe you could do a montage where he's going through a bunch of them. That's kind of fun. You get a music interlude kind of deal, and then you introduce new characters as it goes on, like maybe Amy Rose is introduced. I thought about, and you really play that up. You play up the Freedom Fighters theme, because the Sonic themes, especially like in SatAM and all that, is very relevant today with Resistance, Freedom Fighters. Is very similar actually to the modern Star Wars movies thematically.
It is, and they actually call themselves the Resistance and Sonic Forces and the IDW comics. So I think they could actually play that up quite a bit.
Yeah, and I was shocked they didn't go a direction like that, because CG movies are huge, and this was animated in many ways, but you know what I mean. It was a kind of a mix of the two. And
get it in this sequel because we have to talk about the huge mid-credits spoiler in the room at this point. If people are listening, they expect that. So when Tails showed up and he looked so goddamn beautiful, I actually like jumped in my seat multiple times.
Yeah, like I heard he was in it. I saw, because like I said, I saw him like a week late. And honestly, if you're on Facebook with like movie friends like I have, if you're going on different like forums and stuff for movies, it's hard not to catch it. And I feel like a movie is predictable. I didn't really care that much, but I never saw the design.
I did not expect it though. I did not expect it at all because I really thought it was just going to be Sonic and Eggman the whole movie. But when they did that, it really caught me off guard. There aren't many other like ending credits scenes that have actually blown me away, but that just further showed their devotion to the craft for me, because if they're gonna animate Tails so well, and if they're gonna, the voice actor sounded identical to the games, which was like really cool. I had one of the props from Sonic Colors, which is like his like iPad kind of device where he like uses it as radar and a tracking device and all this stuff, and I was like, oh my god, they got Tails perfect.
Yeah,
like you said,
it was exciting to see him fly as well.
Yes, it was so good. So like that got my sequel brain really going into overdrive.
Yeah, I mean, and as much as I did enjoy this movie, I have to say that a lot of my enjoyment for the movie, I'm not gonna lie, is thinking sequel potential. More, otherworld stuff, more tales, less humans. Even though I like the human stuff in this, it was fine. But I really
Hmm.
want a movie more like the first 5 minutes of this one.
I think they just have a really good jumping off point. They could make the plot for Sonic's character to be about responsibility. Like, oh, his actual homeworld's in shambles, and now that, somebody is trying to find him from it, like he has to leave this cozy life that he's made for himself in Tom's attic, right? So there is a perfect jumping off point for him to leave the human characters behind for the majority of sequel, I
Another
think.
thing
And then
that,
that
oh, sorry. So, another thing that kept striking me the whole time is that it felt like a very kid-friendly version of Rise of the Planet of the Apes in many ways. And and so similarly, I would really hope that the next Sonic movie, The Dawn of the Planet, where it really expands the universe and does that much more with it and builds the world up so much more to what we're more familiar with from the series. And you think about even like Sonic up in the attic, I was like, this is kind of like Caesar in a way.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that in that context, but that's kind of funny.
Yeah, it didn't hit me till like almost like the end of the movie, and I thought like, oh, this is kind of the same thing in a way.
It is just probably, hopefully, less tragedy involved.
We'll see. It depends on which game they adapt.
It
Um,
would be really interesting if they just straight up call the sequel Sonic the Hedgehog 2. So then you're capitalizing on that nostalgia even more because I think for a lot of fans, Sonic 2, in terms of the games, is like where the games get really good. Like Sonic the 1 is fine, but like he doesn't have the spin dash. There's no tails. Like there's a lot of stuff that is super important to fans in Sonic 2. So if they just call it Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and maybe have kind of this basic freedom fighters plot, and then Eggman figures out how to warp to Sonic's world, and then bam, you have your conflict set up so easily. And then I think they could include not too many characters. Like I don't think we're gonna get Shadow or Silver or Blaze because that'd be too much. But they could definitely include Knuckles and Amy and maybe Metal Sonic for sure.
yeah, I would definitely want Knuckles and Tails, and I would like Metal Sonic. What I heard, and I don't think this is going to be the case, but I know a lot of fans were speculating like, what if the third one's called Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and that would be a pretty great subtitle.
My gosh, well that would certainly be very memeable and marketable.
Um, Once, yeah, I think they're getting Knuckles the next one. I heard a rumor on some movie sites that they're talking to Dwayne Johnson, and like for anybody to
I saw
voice
that too.
Knuckles,
He would, and I'm one of those guys who think The Rock's in too much stuff, but honestly, I think that would work out pretty well.
I don't think I've seen a movie The Rock was in over a decade. With that said, yeah, like the prospect of him voicing Knuckles, I'm like, yeah, I would pay like if they inflated ticket prices to like 200% beyond what they are now, I would still pay for that opening night.
Oh my god, that'd be something else. If they actually have a movie poster with Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles like all together, like Sonic Heroes in it, up in this business, that would be amazing.
So one negative thing I'll say about the movie, it's a minor point actually. It's most of my complaints about the movie are shockingly minor, like basically nitpicks to be honest. There were two
Mm.
particular ones that were a little more prevalent. The first was the Mushroom World Zone. I always thought Sonic 3, the opening stage, is a Mushroom World when I personally cannot stand those stages. I know they're popular with fans, but I don't like them.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I
It's,
think they were probably trying to harken back to Mushroom Hill Zone in a way, but like a very loose callback.
yeah, and what drives me crazy about this, you always get like held back by things grabbing you and pulling you back and all that. It's just too much on the screen at once, is why I don't care
That's
for
not
it.
my favorite zone either.
But anyhow, aside from the frustrations of the level, um, it it just was kind of a weird landscape, and then it was supposed to be weird and kind of funny, and I guess the whole thing was like against Mario, like when someone's like, I hate mushrooms, and I get that, and that's kind of cheeky, and that kind of Sega does what Nintendo don't and all that, but like I don't know, that particular, I don't know, something about it was just so like strange and random feeling to me.
I I kind of agree. Like I don't know. I feel like it was just a little underdeveloped because it's like, so I guess we got to talk about the rings a little bit if we're talking about the mushroom world. It's like
Oh, that's fair, yeah.
the rings are essentially very much like the Chaos Emeralds in this movie, and I think they kind of took what the big rings did. Like if you clear a stage in the 2D games, sometimes you get a special zone where you jump into a ring and go to freaking LSD town and you get some extra points and lives and shit. So I think they just ran with that concept. But after the Genesis era, we're used to the Chaos Emeralds, like helping you warp to different places. And do that in this universe, it just kind of opens up this weird wait, is the entire universe connected through these rings? And if so, is there literally a planet with just mushrooms? And why that specific planet? Like, I just felt like the ideas can be fleshed out a little bit more. Like, they didn't really get into the nitty-gritty lore of that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and I totally agree. Now, with the rings for me, once again, with the other mythology stuff, it's malleable. I'm cool with different interpretations. It's, I guess each ring is like a different, like he can just use that to teleport or whatever, and I guess that makes sense how they need some purpose for the rings in this. Why not do that? I can roll with it. I do agree that whole element felt a little bit underdeveloped, but I don't imagine they're going to get deep into teleportation theory or whatever in this movie. It works well for what it is. It's kind of a plot device. I was fine with it.
Yeah.
I didn't love it. But yeah, the mushroom world, I think you
I'm pretty
hit
much
the nail on the
there.
head. It's just underdeveloped.
I'm pretty much there with you. But who knows? They might end up. I feel like these are ideas, like the settings and the rings and the MacGuffins, if they are the MacGuffins again. I think they'll develop those more in a sequel too. I really think this movie, and it could be a detriment to it at points, is really for the mainstream. Like, this is a Sonic movie for normies, while still being, the fan stuff is like, the normies aren't even going to know it's there. It's like the fan stuff we'll recognize because we're fans.
Like Sonic being
But
in it.
oh my god, yeah, I forgot that happened briefly, but I'm glad you reminded me of that. Yeah, there were so many little Easter eggs and nods in this movie. I mean, just the fact that they're going to San Francisco is a nod to the development and creation of the character in the first game, and how San Francisco is basically the landmark for the first stage in Sonic Adventure 2, and that all just felt really right.
It did, and it's just so weird to talk about this movie and have positive things to say at all, let alone mostly positive things. One thing that I have to admit, and I just have a weird affinity for this kind of thing in movies, but it also gets into kind of my second complaint, I guess you could say. It's not even really a complaint, but when they go to the biker bar and Sonic's looking, he's in the car, and it's like, I can't go, I gotta stay in the car, and then he's looking and they're doing something that looks kind of cool to him, and then it shows him, he's like, stay strong, and then he looks again and they're doing something even cooler, and he's like, I don't need to go there, and then they're doing flips on motorcycles or something absolutely cartoonishly insane, and he's like, I gotta go in, and and then they just have this weird thing where Sonic's at a bar and he gets into a bar fight, and that stuff was fun, I thought, but it does and I know this has been done before X-Men and Quicksilver, but in recent times it's really hard not to just think of Quicksilver when he goes so fast it basically stops time. And it's
Yeah, they totally ripped off Quicksilver, and I'm kind of glad they did, because they do it twice in the movie too. Because then they do it when Eggman's missiles are firing on Sonic and his friends. So,
and it's done well.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard not to like it.
It is. I mean, it's kind of cliche at this point, but it's kind of a good cliche. It's just
derivative, but I don't mind.
Familiar, even for a movie that is very familiar, and I guess that is a Sonic thing. I mean, Super Sonic is Super Saiyan. The Death Egg is obviously the Death Star. Sonic is just an amalgamation of pop culture tropes. So I guess him doing Quicksilver X-Men stuff, him playing guitar with Queen playing and all that, is in line with the character. It's in line with what the franchise has always been, because it never was original. It's weird, but it's not original.
That's a good point. Like you said, the Dragon Ball and the Star Wars and all these other influences. Like Sonic literally had a game where he was in the world of the Arabian Nights and Aladdin. Like sometimes they'd literally go that obvious. So the fact that they basically ripped off the X-Men movies, I was fine with, because it's almost like that Quicksilver idea is so good that it's almost a shame to waste it on just a couple movies and never see it again. So that just made me happy.
Yeah, and I really hope that this kicks off, like, I would hope for at least 2 more movies from this, because there's so much potential and so much promise from this.
Yeah, we might be entering, just on a grand scale, the age of video game movies. I think people are a little tuckered out over comic book movies. We've seen the MCU end its large-scale 10-year, 11-year plan, even though it's still going on. We've seen so many movies that are adapting other things. I think Detective Pikachu and Sonic the Hedgehog, and there's a couple good video game movies on Netflix, like Ni no Kuni, and apparently the Dragon Quest movie lately. Like, people are finally figuring it out. Like, you can adapt video games into movies. And I know that we have a Super Mario Brothers movie on the horizon in a couple of years that's animated by Illumination, but also spearheaded by Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of Mario. So it's not going to be a disaster like the Bob Hoskins movie.
You'd be great, though.
Movie coming out.
What if the new Mario movie is even worse?
Possible. I really don't. Because the old Mario movie is one of my least favorite things that exists in pop culture. So that would be an accomplishment, honestly, in and of itself.
Yeah, it's so strange that I can't hate it. I don't enjoy it. I'm kind of fascinated and repulsed.
Yeah, it makes me feel gross just watching it.
Oh yeah, Dennis Hopper is Bowser, and just like he just stabs Yoshi in the neck, and like it's a grimy movie.
I don't know why, because Mario is like the most clean, happy, cheerful video game series you could possibly imagine, and yet somehow they went that direction. I'll never understand. But
like I said, I truly think they just did the opposite of what everybody wanted. I really think that was their ethos the whole time.
Yeah, and that brings us, I guess, to our closing points about the Sonic movie. I think overall, considering everything, studio interference to be like, all right, we got to have human characters. We got to do this, this, and this. They probably had a checklist they had to tick off because it's a studio video game movie, right? But considering everything that could have possibly happened, I can't imagine getting a better movie realistically that actually captures the essence of Sonic.
Yeah, I agree. And, like you said, and like I've been saying this whole time, this movie is the exact opposite of what I wanted. And yet, it was the best case scenario on pretty much all counts.
Even though, our dream Sonic movie would probably be some animated movie where they have a really, like, epic story, but also have a lot of the callbacks to the games. That's probably what I would make. But, considering like it's the best version of what they would what they did and what they would have made.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean it's a product I really wasn't interested in on concept alone, and it was that concept done better than I've ever seen it done that I could think of, at least.
I totally agree. So I think things are looking up for the Sonic franchise and hopefully for video game movies, because if I love video games, I'm a huge gamer. You like video games, so if we can actually start getting more of the mainstream audience into video games, I would be very happy, because I just think that would be a positive thing.
And I think that's good now. I think with Detective Pikachu did well financially. Sonic appears to be doing even better. I was tracking the first 2 weeks. I kind of fell off. But it was tracking really strong. So those two, we're going to get another Pokemon movie. We're going to get another Sonic movie. It's basically guaranteed. The Mario movie, of course, that's going to be huge. Probably bigger than both these. Maybe even both these combined. So
be interesting.
And there's a Zelda movie coming out, I believe, as well.
I don't think there's anything confirmed, but honestly, in the 2020s, I wouldn't surprise me if we got it.
Yeah, I thought I heard something. I don't know where. There's always rumors, so I probably just heard one of those things. But yeah, I
Oh,
definitely think that we're going to be seeing the renaissance of it. And I don't have anything against comic book movies. I like comic book movies. Some of my favorite movies of the last decade were comic book movies. But I'm glad to see it, getting reskinned, to be honest. The fatigue set in a long time ago for me.
exactly, and we need some variety in our movie going palette. And if the adventure movies are not always the Disney movies, the Star Wars, and the comic books, and we actually get some more of these properties involved that just due to their influence on pop culture should really just get movies. And if they're good, they're good. They can keep making them. If they're bad, they won't make a sequel, really.
Yeah, how I see it is I just want more of everything. I don't necessarily even want less superhero movies. I just want more other movies. And to see this, video game movie genre start to kind of slowly take over a little more is exciting, especially because we've never had them of this quality before.
No, I completely agree. And yeah, if we can just get more options, more different ways to see maybe characters or adventures that we're familiar with on the screen, I think that would just be good in the long run.
All right, so I'm going to draw to a final note. Out of 10, what would you give this movie?
That's a good question. I give it an 8 out of 10 because I review movies based on they're going for. Obviously, I'm not comparing Sonic the Hedgehog to Citizen Kane, right? So based on what the movie is going for, I think it's a solid 8 out of 10 because it's meant to be a kid's movie. It's meant to be a fun, wacky video game adventure. And I actually did do a written review of it. If this is on YouTube, we can plug that in the comments below because I like to give kind of a down to earth take on movies. I'm not offended if something isn't shooting for the moon because something like the Sonic the Hedgehog movie doesn't have to shoot for the moon to be fun and entertaining. So that's what I would give it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really fair score, and I appreciate how you're rating the movie because that's how I do as well. I usually based on pretty much two things. The first one's very flawed, which is why I don't always use because a lot of my tens go completely contradict this. I think rewatchability, would I watch this again? But honestly, so many of my favorite movies are so powerful or so long that I wouldn't foreseeably. I kind of break down like, would I watch this again in a year? Would I watch this again in 2 years? That kind of deal. But some of my favorite movies are so amazing because I can only watch them once because they're that powerful. The other thing I go by is just generally enjoyment, obviously, and respect for the craft, or whatever you want to call it. I would give this movie, I'm kind of torn the whole time I was watching it between 7.5 and 8. And I'll settle for 7.5. But honestly, the more I sit on it, the more I think about it. Even doing this podcast, I like the movie more now that we've talked about it. I think it's going to go up in the future, so I'm setting the bar a little bit lower. But I do think in a year, like, I probably will end up buying this movie once it's like, on clearance somewhere cheap on Blu-ray. I don't buy full price movies anymore, just too much money. It's not about the quality of this. I'll probably watch it again and really enjoy it in 2 years.
No, I totally agree with that sentiment. I'll probably want to own it just so I can, if a friend's over and they are interested in seeing it, I'd like to show it to them. I'd like to show my kids the Sonic movie when I'm a dad someday. It's just it's a fun movie to watch with other people. And, not every movie has that quality. And like you said, us talking about it as fans kind of makes it better too. And if a huge genre franchise film like this can make you happy by having fans talk about it, I think it did its job.
Yeah, and as Sonic fans, I can't think of, maybe, I guess Mania as well. Mania, this movie, and Generations were really the only last few times I remember saying something so positive about Sonic in a decade. So being able to like see something that was such a clear dumpster fire from the beginning, that I was like, oh god, this is gonna be a mess, and then to come out of it just completely positive. Even my negative points I said before, just really little nitpick, little gripes. I don't like hate it. It's just like, that could be done a little better. And that's like maybe two things.
I think I felt that way about a couple of the jokes, like the product placement and the fart jokes were a bit much, honestly. But
the fart joke, yeah. To be honest, I thought about when I was going to 8.8 or 7.5. I was like, that fart brings it to a 7.5 for me. I do not like that.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, but again, they're nitpicky little things, and like the jokes I didn't like had the kids in the theater laughing the most. So it's like I think it balanced being a family movie for all ages pretty well.
Yeah, I agree. And the humor, a lot of it didn't necessarily hit for me. I wasn't like cracking up the whole time. There were some parts that were genuinely funny. And there was others that my sister found funny that I didn't, and all that. Particularly one thing I found really charming, and it's always described to me as a very charming movie, is when Sonic sees a turtle and he picks it up and takes it for a run. And that's very early on. But I thought that was really cool.
It's a really cool moment because I love moments that get you little subtle glimpses into the character. So you see from the get-go that Sonic is innately a kind person. So it was like a character moment as well as a joke. So I really liked it for doing both of those things at the same time.
Yeah, and I guess how we describe sounds like this touching moment, but really it's a total joke. And you're right, I didn't think about it, but it does show a lot about Sonic and his values, especially with like other small animals like in the games. But the joke is it shows the turtle going fast. Of course it's confused, it's just an animal, but it's just got it's like its face is just pulled back by the wind. It just looked utterly preposterous. Or Sonic running past the speedometer in the cop's car, and he's like checking his time in the rear view mirror. I thought that was really clever. There were some that didn't land for sure, but mostly they were decent to surprisingly good, I would say.
For the most part, I was chuckling, and then there were definitely sometimes I was, straight out laughing. So, all in all, a really good film, and I'm excited to see what will come in the future. I want to see more moments that give me those game vibes, like when Sonic was doing the homing attack, like over and over and over again on Dr. Eggman's mobile ship at the end of the movie. Like that really screamed to me, this is a video game movie. But like it was such a good moment.
It was, and it's so ridiculous. It's so over the top. I mean, it's basically self-parody at that point without ever like going too far into self-deprecation of the series, like it's such a like tribute to fans. And like, when I play the games anymore, I know that on a lot of stages, if you just kind of get the D-pad so that Sonic's just continuously hitting Eggman, you don't have to actually fight the boss. You just hit him once and just keep doing it. But
the speed of which he was doing it did kind of make me think of that. But they still they committed to the heroic friendship is magic theme at the end of the movie while he was beating him. So I was like, you know what? They did it. They went for it. You can't say they didn't commit to that.
And not just that, but they had the human characters in there, like whatever Crazy Ralph or whatever his name was, and Tom and Tom's wife. And Tom's wife, we didn't talk about her because she's kind of in it, but really hardly. She's charming. I like her. I like her chemistry with Tom. And that was the thing at the end of the movie, is like, I was happy to see Sonic beating up Eggman and all that and doing the spin dash. I was also happy to see some of the human characters too.
No, and I thought it was really cute that they actually just ended up adopting Sonic. That was I feel like, 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds watching the movie are really gonna fuzzy inside seeing something like that. And I don't feel like there's been a lot of movies, even kids movies in the past years, that have ended with that warm fuzzy feeling that I remember some of my favorite kids movies when I was young giving me.
That's true. And I mean, I feel like we all knew it was going to come at the end of the movie, but it just plays out organically. And like the whole movie, it just kind of sells you because it has heart. It doesn't feel cynical at all. And it's a film to be so easy to be such a cynical production. but instead it just has this like warmth to it, or even if the joke doesn't land, even if some parts are underdeveloped, you could just tell there was care put into it. It just feels like it is a huge Hollywood production, but it also does feel kind of like a labor of love.
No, I totally agree. I think that probably comes down to the writers that they had on the movie. I've started following a couple of them on Twitter, and they just seemed very passionate about the movie. So I think the writers and the artists that they ended up getting for this final product really had the passion for it, and it just so happened to also be a studio movie, and they let them have enough freedom that they could be heartfelt and they didn't have to be cynical, because like cartoons or video games turned movies feel that way to me. They feel cynical. It feels like the movie makers are making a movie about something that they don't want to make a movie about.
Yeah, it feels like everybody's above it. It's beneath them. Whereas this was like pretty much the exact opposite. And shit, I forget where I was even going with that. But yeah, I
It
felt like
feels
they
like,
never. Oh, sorry.
just gonna say like all the Transformers and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Smurfs and all these other things, Garfield, all those other properties felt like that to me. Like they felt like, oh man, work on this. So they made a movie about human characters that were stupid and threw in these other elements without really committing to them.
Yeah, and that's a good point to bring it up. And then I guess I do remember us getting that earlier, where it doesn't condescend to the fans, it doesn't condescend to children, because I really take children's entertainment seriously, because I mean, it is America's babysitter. It's, people say, why do you care what's in this kid's book or this kid's movie? And I'm like, because that's what's raising our children. These are the values we're instilling in them. I think that we should care more about children's stuff than adult programming. And to see one, treat the audience, in my opinion, with a fair amount of respect. And also, like you said earlier, they probably had a checklist. Where it's like, okay, we got to get a human character. It's got to do this, this, and that. Sonic's got to, hold a Coke bottle in the scene or whatever. It was like the perfect compromise where just everybody won. The studio won, the fans won.
Kids won. Yeah, and I don't think, like you said, like it's almost like they were celebrating the fact that this movie would please video game fans, or they were celebrating the fact that this movie would make children laugh. It's not like they were upset about that fact. I don't know. It's just the tone and the I guess the meta of this movie felt wholesome once you actually started to sit down and watch it.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, so on that note, do you want to lead us out?
I just want to let you guys all know, be like Sonic. But seriously, this has been Eric and Todd, and we are too cool for the comic shop, and we will see you guys in the next episode.